I want to talk about some of the events that have happened the last week or so, and look at it from a general framework of deglobalization, or the fact that many countries are disconnecting from Western grid or Western civilization. And there are some economic reasons, some technological, but some of it also has to do with all the stupid things that the Americans or the Westerners are doing that speed up the process. Well, after Trump ordered the assassination of General Soleimani, then the U.S. media is going back to the same narratives they had. That this was just another person like Bin Laden, and we just assassinated, and it will be doing good for world peace. It will do good for us. It will do this and that. They're just covering it up with more lies and more. In fact, there's nothing more disastrous for the United States and its allies than assassinating General Soleimani. I think will lead not only to World War III, but also that the Iraqis, the population, the government have completely decided that we need to get rid of the Americans, their troops, their spies, their drones, once and for all, and there is no going back. It also ended. They ended up asking the American troops to leave, and their parliament also voted for that. Then there were all these people, innocent people, that got trampled in riots in Iran or in the ceremonies, and then more people got killed because the Ukrainian plane, that was a passenger plane, it had turned off its transponders. This is the device or signal that tells the radar in Tehran or to the Iranian military that, hey, this is a passenger plane, don't shoot us down. But they flew up to, I don't know, about 8,000 feet, which is less than 3,000 meters, which is not a lot, but the radar was seeing them, military radars were seeing them, but the transponder was off, so they didn't know where this signal was coming from. At the time, everything was so screwed up. They were retaliating against the U.S. troops in Iraq, and at the same time, the Americans were trying to send the B-52s to bomb Tehran or sites in Iran. Then this tragedy happened. They mistook the Ukrainian plane for a military plane. Well, it shows that how much the American government has made it into like a complete formula, algorithms almost, that they play brinkmanship, and they are very ready to bomb civilians, cultural sites, any place. They don't care. On the other side, the Iranians, they took pain to inform these idiots that, hey, we're going to retaliate and get out of the way. But the Americans, they were just ready to bomb Tehran with B-52s and B-2s. It shows a complete lack of morals, complete lack of respect for international law, any kind of code or agreement for military engagement to hit only military targets, not civilians or entire population cities. Well, uh, then later on, Trump came out and said that, well, yes, there were injuries, but those people in the bases in Iraq, they could easily be dead. They could easily be flying around with the body bag. But then retarded the government officials here, they don't even look at that. Hey, somebody spared us. Somebody didn't kill us, even though we had provoked them with many acts of war. It's like, but then the Israelis, Netanyahu came out, and they are now making a memorial for the Holocaust survivors. These people are the ones that are using Holocaust to justify whatever the fuck the Israeli government does. Just out of the blue, go bomb civilian targets in Gaza or in Syria or anywhere, and every time the world wants to come around and convict them in UN or in a world court, then they pull out another episode of Holocaust. Well, I don't know how long this really bad show will go on, but it was interesting that some world leaders were talking about what Israel itself is doing, even at the Holocaust memorials. Well, I think that many Muslim countries should turn Israel into a real shithole, or another Polish ghetto like the Nazi time that it deserves to be, by cutting off all flights, making Israel a no-fly zone. And this can be done. There is a lot of anti-aircraft systems all around Israel to prevent them from doing any kind of business, or totally disconnecting them through no-fly zones and naval blockade, that no person can go in, no products can come out, and turn them into another Iraq. This is a just punishment, and break down their economy and their desire to stay in the Holy Land. But I think that what Trump did is like breaking the dam, breaking all stop gaps to waves of assassinations that that governments, they know that the Americans, they have no morals, and nothing will stop them from killing their citizens or statesmen, and it's fair game. Whoever can kill the other guy first. Well, that's the law of the jungle that we live in. Uh, uh, Even though the stuff that Trump did with Iran isn't being reflected in the impeachment trials, but this is really in the back of their minds. All the senators, they know that Trump crossed the red line, and if he stays in the office, there are no guarantees that he will start another war, another World War III. Basically, it's someone that has no morals, no squabbles about getting into any kind of conflict that Americans or U.S. military may or may not be able to fight it or survive it. And even though these concerns are not part of the impeachment articles, they very much should be in their mind. Well, the senators that are really for his impeachment are also the Democrats, or they're very much influenced by deep state, and they are the ones that were constantly pursuing Iran to start a war themselves. So they're not the good guys either. Everybody's a bad guy in U.S. government, but depends how you they approach it. They will not touch these questions or these ideas with a 10-foot pole. Probably in the United States, Celente and me and maybe a couple of commentators uh, could be the only people that even bring up these issues that hey we entered World War III, we didn't really want to do it, and we don't really trust this president that it will not make things a lot worse. Well, this also shows an underlying trends in the world that they are not very newsworthy, but I want to kind of look at them. And one of the reasons that the U.S. goes periodically instigates false flags or attacks is because the price of oil as a commodity it keeps dropping, and there are many reasons why oil is not as valuable as before. And I'm gonna cover those reasons, but their industrial and military and centralized deep state is very much dependent on oil energy markets to publish money and start wars. And when these markets they're kind of dying off, it kind of reflects in the greater geopolitical concerns. There are several reasons for oil markets to that they're not as important or the price of oil is dropping. Many central banks have been issuing credit. Many governments, in many countries, the oil industry belongs to the government. In Iran, the oil industry entirely is controlled by the government. I think in China, in Russia, many of them are state-owned companies. So they have been able to, these markets or these industries have been able to get very easy credit from central banks. And then there has been continuous exploration for oil, for natural gas, and they have also discovered, and there is a lot of fields that are coming online, or they have been coming online. So there is a lot of production. There's a lot of energy that's available, and because the supply is a lot, then the price is collapsed or has been collapsing or has been coming down. And then there are other energy markets that are coming on. A lot of people they don't know about that. For example, one that is becoming a real competition to oil market is the natural gas. Many countries they have a lot of natural gas resources. For even in the United States, they're able to dig for that, or they have been using shale and natural gas resources here. There's a lot of production. There's a lot of production in Iran, in Qatar, Saudi Arabia has some. There's a lot of natural gas production in Russia. Then natural gas is easy to burn, is cleaner, and is easier. It's not easier to transport, but once you construct the infrastructure, is better than raw oil, and there is less processing to using it. For example, with with oil, you have to process it. You have to build refineries. You have to do all kinds of stuff to make it into petrochemicals and also into gasoline. It's not itself an end product, but the natural gas, you need less processing. I imagine you could burn it. It can be utilized a lot easier and also cleaner. Also, natural gas could be burned or used differently than just burning it. It could be used to extract hydrogen, and there are some energy production using that. When you extract the hydrogen, the natural gas molecules become heavier, become more long chain, and the hydrogen comes out and it can be easily utilized. Then there is solar, and the solar itself, I've seen there are now factories where the mirrors focus the solar into a central point, and it generates a lot of electricity, or it melts certain salts that can be used to generate electricity even at night. And then this is not the end. There is a lot of advances in large scale energy storage using molten salts or aluminum salts, and this has extended the range of times that you could use solar throughout the whole day. I think we could just ditch the natural gas and oil and go completely to solar, but this is a new development. I was watching some videos about when you burn oil or natural gas, this is a very exothermic reaction. A lot of energy, a lot of heat comes out that can be used to run cars or heat up the home. But this is not the only kind of exothermic reaction that exists. In fact, when you burn aluminum or aluminum particles, it generates a tremendous amount of heat and electricity. And the salts is just like a powder. They're heavier than air. They just litter around. They're not as toxic as all the fumes that come out of burning oil. So some battery companies they have gone into making batteries that burns particles or nanoparticles of aluminum and generates electricity or heat, and you can run cars on that for thousands of miles. Well, the list of reactions and fuels are like endless. Well, I was watching some other video about thorium reactors. You don't know what kind of metal or fuel that exists in nature that that could be used for large energy production. There was another one that was very promising, and there have been devices built on it, but many older companies, they kind of quashed its research, and one was cold nuclear reactions that uses palladium to generate hydrogen and heat. That's a very interesting, and there are already working devices. Well, also with all this happening, there is a decentralization, and technology is growing so rapidly. It has resulted in many localities or many countries becoming completely needy of foreign stuff, of buying fuel from outsiders, or getting finished products from outside, because the robotics, the cheap labor, the zero marginal cost technologies, there is so much production internally in many countries that that you really don't need foreigners or foreign trade. But this fact hasn't really dawned on many countries yet. The Iranians, they complain a lot. Oh my God, we are being sanctioned, and but despite all the sanctions, I talk to my family, and there doesn't seem to be anything that really like the Iranians are really crying to get from outside. I was talking to my brother, and he has the same problems with macular degeneration, or detachment, and he's been going to eye doctors, and he was telling me that they're injecting all these very specialized ophthalmologic ophthalmol, ophthalmologic fluids, and they're doing all these eye machine exams. I just kind of wondered with me, where do they get these devices? And my mother said, "Oh, we just built some of them." Oh, we have all these chemicals. We don't have everything. And yes, the sanctions, they really, really hurt. But hey, we haven't had to resort to anything. I think that they just don't need very many things from outside, and they really produce a lot of this stuff. Well, when I had my eye troubles, I went blind. I had infection here in the United States, but both my brother's eyes are healing from all the treatments and laser therapy, and they're doing better job on the same problem, even though they cry all the time. Hey, like, we are so worried about sanctions and this and that. I don't think they need the United States or U.S. Companies or even European companies. Well, the other thing is that the Europeans, you know how the Americans say to the Europeans, dance, and they always dance, but also the Europeans are really two-faced people, and they really don't want to spend their monies on military ventures, and they just do some superficial dance for the Americans. But in fact, they're doing tons of business with anybody that wants to buy things from them or sell things to them. But is it done under the cover, under different payment methods that nobody want to talk about? Are they real two-faced Europeans? They sleep with two men. Well, with the society changing, many women becoming very wealthy, and they have easier time with with the criminal justice systems here and everywhere, and you see many women, they really have two husbands. They don't. The Europeans are like that too. They have really two husbands. They sleep around with the Chinese and the Iranians, but they kind of flirt around with their American husband too. I don't know if they sleep with the Americans anymore. Usually that's what happens with the exes. They give support or lip service, but they're still sleeping with somebody else. I don't know. Maybe they do have a spine, or we just don't know about it. Anyhow, I don't think the relations between Iran and the Arabs and the Chinese and the Russians, with the Europeans is going to end anytime soon. These relations is either economic or whatever you want to call it. Even with the condemned British, we have so much relations, and so many Iranians live there, and the British they always seem to come up with some kind of diplomatic, you know, uh, something to ease their ways with Iran and other countries. Uh, they're not like Americans. Americans are the stupid Puritans that they just want to go around and do a lot of damage, ruled by fear. In fact, nobody really wants them around. Doesn't want their banks, their monies, their stupid politicians, their militaries that are completely disconnected and irrelevant to anything in the world. I don't know. Is this empire going to just totally implode, or I don't know. Well, I still don't know if the Americans that are in those two bases, Ain al-Assad or the other base, have they left without saying, publicizing it? Are they putting fresh troops? Well, this what happened to them could also happen to other bases. If I was the Iranian government, I would do the same with other bases, like declare the night before, hey, we're gonna bomb the fuck out of your bases in Qatar, and get the fuck out, or go hide in a shithole, and then destroy all their infrastructures, their fucking drones, completely EMP the place, and in the morning they can come out and they complain to their senators and sing sorry praises for their government. What if we just destroyed all their equipment, EMP'd their ships, identified their CIA agents and put them in prison? Any of the soldiers that we can grab and throw them in the prison, we can do that. Our technology, our military technology is better. I would still like to see these many of these fucking U.S. politicians and Israeli politicians like Netanyahu or Avigdor Lieberman. I would like to see them get assassinated. They are living in a myth that hey, we are invincible, which they are not. And it would be nice to break this myth. Also, killing these people or destroying all their equipment is morally right. It's not morally difficult thing to do, because they are the ones that have been tormenting us forever. I would start with their equipment, with their drones, with their roads, with their buildings, with their infrastructure. Even EMP Washington DC, ruin everything, and then they can run to their central bank and get fresh credit to build more of this shit. Well, I wanted in this video to go about talking about how many countries like Iran or Iraq, Syria, they are completely disconnecting from Western world and businesses, and they're going their own way completely. And this is something that has happened in other parts of the world, but just that the stupid Americans, they don't know that. Well, this video is getting too long, and I like this topic of decentralization and disconnection from international business or globalized business, but I think I'm gonna have to continue in another video. Thank you for being in my YouTube channel. Please leave comment. Don't be shy and subscribe.